just my old friend.
Hi, everybody.
I had to. We had an eclipse today.
We had partial eclipse.
There was an eclipse today.
There was an eclipse today, which we got a good portion of. We got over 80% of eclipse today, around 3:18 this afternoon.
And I figured Darkness, My Old Friend, was not as well played as Total Eclipse of the Heart, which, if you really actually knew this, the eclipse lasted 4 minutes and 27 seconds. Total Eclipse of the Heart lasts 4 minutes and 30 seconds. There's your trivia for the day if you didn't already know it. FYI, this is more whiskey than tea.
Nice. What am I broadcasting on? Why?
I don't know what you're broadcasting on.
I don't know either. I'm not finding my own live stream.
Technology after an eclipse.
Oh, wait, oh. Now, there we are. Wow.
Oh, God, look at that smile.
Yes. Look at that glow. You need to turn the lights down.
Are we shining?
We're shining.
And I don't even have bling on.
The moon people are coming to get us.
Funny thing is, we're talking about them tonight.
Yes, there is a moon man tonight. This was completely unplanned, by the way. Much like most of our shows.
Okay, we're not... Ah, get back here.
What? I'm right here.
No, this. He went bye-bye. Anyway, so things that we've been doing. Oh, tours.
Tours, yes.
And, oh yes, we sponsored the RVA Burlesque Festival this weekend, which was fabulous.
Yeah.
Lots of bling.
Always fabulous. I mean, that's kind of their thing. Fabulous.
They were shiny and fabulous, and it was wonderful.
So, had a good time. Thursday at Strange Ways over on Dabney, and Friday at Ember Music Hall,
which we'd never been to before, but that was a really cool space.
It's a nice venue there. Ember Music Hall. It's on the 400 block of Broad Street.
Yeah, it's right across from the convention center. That's the right one.
So that was cool. And then Saturday night was at the Bird Theater.
Of course.
Yep.
And our wonderful guide Marsha was there helping out Thursday and Saturday. Got to be on stage both days as the Raffle Girl.
Yep. So yeah, it was
right, baby.
It was chaos.
Yes, chaos is their stage name.
That was just yes. So, anyways, yeah, hope that y'all have had a good last couple of weeks as well. Look, we did Virginia 2 weeks ago,
yeah,
right?
We did.
And now we're going just slightly to the west, over to West Virginia.
Yeah.
So
I do apologize for my scratchy throat. We spent the eclipse on the roof in pollen. And I'm now paying for it.
Yeah. So, but it's okay. It's fine. I mean, it's not like,
And while I didn't buy the plants, I planted the plants and I fed them eclipse water. So, I'm totally hoping for the Audrey plant.
We don't have an Audrey yet. I'm kind of disappointed.
We're hoping.
Hoping. We'll see. We'll see. Anyways, but yes. So, West Virginia. Tonight's episode was a lot of fun to research, I gotta say.
When I started going there, I went there.
West Virginia, they embrace it. As a state, of course, people talk...
Mothman.
Yeah, Mothman.
Mothman.
But, they talk about... Lots of places like to talk about how they embrace their haunted heritage. And that's usually kind of on a city-by-city basis. West Virginia...
Eats, lives, breathes it.
And it's not just haunted, it's paranormal in general. Now, we're going to focus on the haunted stuff tonight, but you will get a couple of little throw-ins along the way for some of their other kind of fun paranormal stuff as well. So, West Virginia, no stranger to paranormal phenomena or otherworldly phenomena, so much so that we have covered numerous spooky tales from the Mountain State before. Of course, we did talk about Mothman before.
I'm sorry. This is the pollen.
So we covered Mothman in Pop Culture Hauntings Volume 1. And we also visited the Lake Shawnee Amusement Park in our Haunted Amusement Parks Volume 2 show that we did. So that's just a couple of examples of times that we have been out there. And between, of course, the Mothman and these amusement parks, there's plenty amongst the mountains for paranormal enthusiasts. So join us as we... join us on the country roads as we seek out haunting stories and maybe the misty taste of moonshine with a show that is dedicated to our neighbor to the west.
All right, so we're going to talk about Centralia. Now, of course, when you hear the word Centralia, everybody starts thinking Burning City.
Which is in Pennsylvania.
Not that Centralia.
A different Centralia.
This one, however, has a moon man. Did you know West Virginia had a moon man?
They have just about everything else, so why not?
It was kind of cool to find this one out.
It is a fun story. Don't get me wrong.
It is. All right, so in the very center of West Virginia is the town of Centralia. So named so because it's the center of Braxton County, which is pretty much at the center of the entire state. It just so happens that Centralia is a relative ghost town with no more than a dozen houses and a country store. It's one of the smallest and most isolated communities in West Virginia. It does bring some outsiders in during the summer months, and there's a lovely campground on the outskirts of town at the edge of Sutton Lake. But that's not what draws people here. The other thing that Centralia catches the interest of the outside world is known as the town that is the home of Moonman. Along the track of the old Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, an eccentric drifter known locally in the late 1800s as the Moonman was decapitated after being hit by a train at Centralia. Some say his headless ghost often haunts the tracks by Centralia for almost a half a century in the late 1800s and into the early 1900s. Some say he still might linger there today. It's believed that Moonman's real name was Jacob Beamer. Beamer was was out walking along the tracks late one night back in 1890, and just a few years after the railroad had actually been constructed through that area. How exactly he came to be struck by the train is uncertain, but the collision removed his head from his body, and that alone is a remarkable thing about Beamer's legacy. But his mystery goes deeper than that. Locals had given Beamer the nickname the Moon Man long before his passing, as Beamer came to the area making some pretty jaw-dropping claims. Beamer claimed his ancestors had come from the moon and had been forced to remain here on Earth after a meteor knocked the moon out of its orbit, destroying all life and what had been a thriving lunar civilization. It was also the subject of some discussion that Beamer liked to stroll in the moonlight, and on such a brilliantly lit night, he met his end under the wheels of the locomotive. When town folks found his mangled body and the head was already missing and would ultimately never be found, whether it was carried away by the train or a scavenger, or perhaps rolled away to be lost in the nearby waters, it's anyone's guess. For years after the tragedy, some residents of Centralia claimed to have seen a gray ghost leading a stooping, headless man who they took to be Beamer. Phantoms walked together on the tracks looking downward as if in search for Beamer's missing head. In the 1930s, a hunter from Pittsburgh reported that he saw the pair, and he believed the ghost of Beamer was holding a skull in the crook of his left arm. After this unsettling sighting, the two weren't seen again for years, and most assumed the Moon Man had finally found his head. In the 1950s, the original tracks were removed to make room for the engineering project that created Sutton Lake. Though the original haunt of the Moon Man has been lost, some think that the phantoms of Moon Man and his gray companion still walk along the lake where the tracks once ran. Our most favorite part of this is that you can actually go to find out more about Moon Man at the Flatwoods Monster Museum, just a short 25 minutes up the road from Centralia in the town of Sutton, where it shares space with Braxton County Visitor Center. This is just a couple of blocks up the street from the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum. Who's ready for a road trip?
Time for a road trip.
We totally need to take a road trip. We need to take Brad with us. Yeah, Brad needs to show us the spots.
Yeah, we really have not spent much time in West Virginia at all.
We've driven through it.
We went and stayed, what was it, one night there at the that spa place?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's basically
that was near, outside of Harpers Ferry.
Yes, that was up closer to Harpers Ferry. So, yeah, so much more to explore. We have to go visit all of it. We have to go visit all of it. So, yes,
you might be carrying most of the show tonight, I'm sorry.
I'm gathering as much.
My voice is going quickly.
I noticed. But anyways, so we are not going to, as a matter of fact, speaking of Sutton, we are going to stay there for this next story, where we're going to go find the infamously haunted Haymond house. This beautiful Queen Anne-style mansion from 1894 was built by prominent attorney Williamson Haymond. He lived there with two of his wives, Emma Catherine, who passed away in 1907, and then Ethel Rhodes, who he lived there with through the balance of their lives. Although altered on the exterior with an application of siding, the house maintains a significant portion of its historic appearance at the time of Haymond's residence. The house features rich interior craftsmanship and rare decorative materials. It still has its beautiful and original floors and staircase, and it sits on a sandstone foundation, which is kind of typical for many of the similar buildings in the area. Though beautiful and well-loved, the Haymond house experienced an extended period of neglect and was slowly coming apart. In 2019, the house was purchased and the new owner started to piece things back together. That's also when the strange and unexplained phenomena started. A 6-inch glowing oval orb floated about the basement for several minutes. Disembodied footsteps started pacing on the second floor. A tall, slim gray figure started making appearances throughout the house, and a smaller shadow figure has been seen on the second floor. All of this just for starters. Who or what is responsible for these encounters is up for debate. Is it a member of the Haymond family? Perhaps, or maybe it's someone else. A respected psychic claimed to encounter several spirits while visiting the Haymond house, including one that may have resulted from a hanging or a strangulation that he claims to have taken place in the servants' stairwell. He did go on to say that while the property holds many spirits, none of them wish to harm anyone. They only want to tell their stories. Amidst the reported activity, one spirit that stands out is that of a woman in white who is often encountered on the second floor hallway. She is believed to be responsible for the footsteps, shadow play, and disembodied voices that are experienced there. Doors in this area will also open, close, lock, and unlock without any help. People visiting this area have been grabbed by the arm, gently trying to get attention. Blinds have also been raised all on their own. Now, if you want to experience the Haymond house for yourself, they do offer tours and overnight rentals. You can check out their Facebook page, The Haunted Haymond, to see what they have going on or to drop them a note. Yes, Harpers Ferry is haunted, and we will be getting there.
Yes, we will be getting there. We unfortunately were not able to do a ghost tour when we were there because we were there in February and it was rainy and yucky and cold and they weren't running.
Yep. So,
but we need to get back there so we can actually do a.
Yes, that is the house, Patrick. The William Edgar Haymond House in Sutton, West Virginia. So yeah,
Spicy Kitties.
Patrick managed to find it on Wikipedia. But yes, they don't have their own website. They do have their Facebook page, though. So if you want to see what they got going on, the latest, it was The Haunted Haymond. So, yeah. Anyways, you can keep up on some of the chat if I'm going to keep reading. So.
I can read for if you want to. I'm nowhere near the chat.
Okay. Well, in any case.
My phone's about dead. I'm sorry.
All right. You're just all kinds of problems tonight.
I can take myself away.
No, you don't need to take yourself away. I'm sorry.
I'm spicy too.
Yes, you are. You're allergy suffering.
I have a medication.
You're medicating.
I am totally medicated right now. Okay, yeah. I will move on.
Yes.
The Hempfield Tunnel.
So, yes.
Moving on to that awkward little wedge of West Virginia squeezed between Pennsylvania and Ohio. We're going to find the city of Wheeling and the banks of the Ohio River. In 1810, Wheeling was growing at a rapid rate, and a desperate need for a cemetery was filled through the generous gift of the local family who deeded the land to designate a cemetery. Yay! It was placed near the town for easy and convenient access for family members to visit grave sites. For more than 35 years, bodies were buried at the Hempfield Cemetery, which just happened to be located on the top of a hill where a train tunnel gets built in the 1850s. Y'all know where this is going, right? We've talked about this before. Prior to construction, Wheeling hired a local man to dig up the bodies and move them to 2 other nearby cemeteries. Most accounts about moving the dead say that he got most of them. So yeah, there's still bodies on top of the tunnel. I'm sure you see, again, where this is going. Apparently, those whose bodies were left behind are credited with the haunting of the area around the newly built Hempfield tunnel. To make matters worse, some reports, including a historic interpretation sign in the area, note that some of the dead may have been robbed of their valuables during their internments. At least that's what's to be believed to make up a good part of the bizarre activity that occurs in this area. The area around the Hempfield Tunnel has played witness to numerous tragedies throughout the years. On July 19th of 1869, the Wheeling Daily Intelligencer printed a story about a man that was murdered in the tunnel and his subsequent hauntings, including the following excerpts. Quote, "Since the last annual visit of the East Wheeling spirit, no spooks have walked above the ground in this vicinity for several years, and the minds of our citizens have begun to run in the even tenor of their ways on this question, some even being so skeptical as to doubt the very presence of spirits of the dead men in this terrestrial ball. The frightful revelations of a party who were eyewitnesses to the scene we are about to describe dispelled some of those dreams of security and caused the hearts of many to quake, and their guilty consciences to tremble." The tunnel enters the hillside at a distance of about 40 feet from the bridge over Wheeling Creek, behind the hill which forms the background of our thriving and prosperous city. It immediately enters into a bed of rock and coal, which the darkness occasioned by the exclusion of the sun's rays that were not sufficient to render it gloomy and dismal, would of
itself have had that effect. Its sides and ceiling are covered with dampness and moisture. Directly overhead is situated the Peninsula Cemetery, so that the green and poisonous slime, which oozes from the fissures and crevices in the overhanging rocks, but with little effort of the imagination, may he attributed to the graves and coffins of the dead who lie moldering above.
Okay, I hope you all didn't just eat.
At the mouth of the tunnel is a sequestered spot known as Barry's Hole. Its name is significant as its record shows it to be the watery grave of many poor fellows. In the memory of many of our readers, the history of Schaefer, the bloodthirsty and brutal murderer who expiated his crimes expiated his crimes on the scaffold at Parkersburg, is still fresh. The slaughter of one of his victims took place in the tunnel, is well known, and is supposed to have immediate reference to the appearance of the ghost last week.
Okay, can we say horror movie plot line right here?
Oh yes, they knew what they were talking about back in the late 1800s. Yeah. Other deeds of this kind are too well known to bear repetition, so that it has been an unceasing wonder that the scene of so many horrible crimes has not been continually haunted by the spirit of the murdered men. Thursday evening, about 6 o'clock, a party of 4 men were proceeding through the tunnel. No sooner had they reached the point where the light from the outer world becomes dim and obscure than an ominous silence full upon all and every one of them. Soon groans and supplications for mercy fell upon their startled ears. The men stood transfixed with horror and fright. All at once, issuing from the solid rock which forms the ceiling directly over the spot where the murderer slaughtered his victim, a ghastly form appeared. The specter itself was as clearly visible as in the noonday. I got moon on the mind. Noonday. It descended feet first until it reached a place about equidistant from the door and the ceiling of the tunnel, where it stopped and remained for a few seconds. Although covered with the slime and earth of the grave, the features of the ghastly specter were distinctly visible. Its appearance was horrible in the extreme, with one arm extended and the bloody fingers of the hand hanging half severed from their stems. With the forefinger of the other hand, it pointed to a gaping wound in his temple. The wound seemed fresh, but the drops of blood seemed clotted and stood out in bold relief on the face of the ill-starred wretch. Without a movement of the lips, a voice apparently issuing from the throat of the ghost exclaimed in a tone so unnatural as to be totally indescribable, "Let the dead rest."
You gotta love when you find these articles.
Yeah, this was printed in the newspaper. I love that.
I miss the days that we printed ghost stories in the newspapers. Can we bring that
Particularly back? Like that. Anyways, there are instances Now, going on, not in the newspaper article anymore, there are instances throughout the years when the tunnel was still in use by trains where at least a couple of men were struck and killed inside the tunnel. It is possible their ghosts are a part of the unexplained haunts that occur here. Most of the reports from the tunnel read like the one that was printed in 1869, with ghosts seen hanging from the roof of the tunnel or otherwise floating above the tracks. If you're up for it, you can chance your own ghostly encounter there as well. Today, the Hempfield Tunnel is open for people to walk through and experience for themselves as a stop along the beautiful Wheeling Heritage Trail. Paired with the adjacent Hempfield Railroad Bridge that crosses Wheeling Creek just a few short steps away, this is a hotspot for hikers, historians, architectural enthusiasts, and paranormal investigators alike.
I would be really curious what CPRI could pull up there.
They'd have to get permission.
They'd have to, but still.
And it is an open space with all kinds of background noise and stuff like that. It'd be difficult. But in any case.
I'd still be curious if they got any weird readings, ashes, or any other type.
Yeah. It'd be a fun place to investigate.
Yeah.
Road trip. We're going to say that several times tonight. It helps that West Virginia is just there.
It's there. And unfortunately, we did not win the Powerball, so we don't have the funding for a year-long road trip yet. Sponsors. Anybody want to sponsor this? Just saying.
Anyways, now we are going to go to the far eastern part of West Virginia. We have the corner of the state referred to as the Eastern Panhandle. This is that awkward little part of the state shoehorned in between Virginia and Maryland, and is said to be home to an extraordinary number of ghosts, in large part due to the number of Civil War conflicts that took place there. And one road in particular may be carrying an exceptional amount of dark energy left over from the Civil War era. West Virginia Route 901 is a 5.5-mile stretch through farmland in Berkeley County. Formerly known as County Route 3, it's the kind of road that would typically be overlooked by all but the locals, but it has been immortalized in publications as a destination full of ghostly activity. Several people have reported disturbing encounters driving down the street late at night. Most famously, a couple was driving down the road one foggy night when the mist closed in and the car came to a stop. A wounded, ragged Confederate soldier limped out of the fog and, desperate for help, placed his hands on the hood of the car with a thump. He looked pleadingly at the couple driving the car, then collapsed. When the couple got out of the car to check on the fallen soldier, they saw that he had vanished. Only the man's bloody handprints on the car remained, and by the time the couple returned home, they too were gone. Others have reported encounters with this ghost or similar figures along 901 and some other ancient roadways through the mountains and valleys in this corner of West Virginia. While not all of the roads lie on battlefields, the armies of the North and South marched up and down through here numerous times during the conflict, making camp and enduring the elements. If you want to explore Route 901 for yourself, it is very easy to find. Its eastern end intersects with Interstate 81 at exit 20 just north of Martinsburg. While you're there, keep an eye out for another famous West Virginia creature, as the Mothman has also been sighted by some in this part of the state. And with that, we're not quite done with our haunted roads of West Virginia. We have another one for you.
There's actually quite a few.
There are, but I think this...
I only picked two, I think.
This will not be the last time you hear about West Virginia. We'll leave it at that.
Let's just say I am getting so good at this research that we have parts 2 and 3 for several states.
Yes. Now, this one, we start this particular story in 1932.
You want me to take over? We seem to be...
What?
Start going there. All right, so 1932. Mamie Thurman was a pretty dark-haired 31-year-old housewife married to a local policeman in Logan, West Virginia. The couple rented a 2-room apartment over a garage, which was located in the backyard of 42-year-old Harry Robertson and his wife, Louise. Robertson was a starched suit bookkeeper at the National Bank of Logan and was described as having greasy hair, a pinched face, and thick glasses. On Wednesday, June 22nd of 1932, a man was picking berries near the top of Trace Mountain, just to the southwest of Logan, when he stumbled across a grisly sight. The body of a young woman who had just been shot and stabbed in the left, discarded in the ditch. When the police arrived, the body was identified as Mamie. Nothing at the scene suggested robbery was the motive. Her pocketbook was found near her body and its contents undisturbed. She was still wearing her wristwatch, a gold diamond ring, an engagement ring, and the police began to question neighbors and friends. Quickly, several names came up leading to two suspects, that of Harry Robertson and then also handyman who boarded in the attic of Robertson's home, 29-year-old Clarence Stevenson. While the funeral was being held and the whispers were beginning around town, Robertson's house was searched by state police, and there was a depression in the basement wall that suspected could be the result of a bullet strike. Bloodstains were found on both the carpet and a razor. Bloodstains were also found on the seat in the window of the Ford sedan owned by Robertson. Are we good now?
Yeah, I think so. Harry Robertson and his handyman/chauffeur/hunting buddy, Clarence Stevenson, were accused of the murder. Robertson had readily admitted to having an affair with Mamie for nearly 2 years. The meetings were arranged by Clarence Stevenson, who feigned hunting trips with Harry Robertson, then dropped him off at certain rendezvous points to meet Mamie. However, Harry Robertson was never indicted by the grand jury. Stevenson continuously stated that he was innocent, but was indicted and stood trial for the death of Mamie Thurman. He was found guilty and sent to Moundsville Prison. As for Mamie, she does not rest easy. Her ghost haunts the mountain road called 22 Mine Road, where her body was dumped. She is said to be seen at the top of the mountain walking along the roadway. But that isn't all. Legends in the area state that if you park at the bottom of 22 Mine Road and place your car in neutral, it will roll uphill. Perhaps it is Mamie's ghostly hands pushing your vehicle away from the site which her spirit has claimed as her own. So, 22 Mine Road out there.
There's a lot of stories of your car moving backwards.
Rolling uphill.
Yeah.
By unseen hands.
A lot of them are like around cemeteries with ghost children or whatever, but this was one that was not around the cemetery.
Nope. Just where somebody was seemingly murdered. Details. So, anyways, next up, Harper's Ferry. Oh, yes. This one, there's so much from Harper's Ferry.
Oh my God, so much.
So we wound up, we kind of chose this one in particular first-hand account of a bizarre experience that some Civil War reenactors had there on a cold December night.
I gotta say, finding this story just sent chills up my bones and made me want to camp out in the middle of Harper's Ferry in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So the individual at the center of this story, a man named Michael Mills. He and his brother are avid reenactors, and one year they portrayed Union soldiers as they were when Harper's Ferry was occupied in the early stages of the war. It was December, so this event was staged to portray a Christmas atmosphere in 1861. After arriving and getting checked in, they went to set up their camp for the night. The campsite was directly behind the old firehouse on the side that is closest to the railroad tracks and the Shenandoah River.
Which we have checked out.
Yes. Very cool area.
I had weird feelings around there.
Yeah. Now, for reference, the old firehouse is where John Brown and his accomplices were held up during their uprising a few years prior to the Civil War. Michael and his brother got a fire going, rolled out their blankets, and bedded down for the night, huddled up close to the fire to fend off the chilly December air. Michael woke up about 2 a.m. because the fire had died down and the cold had overtaken him. He set to rebuilding the fire, and after about 10 minutes of working the fire, he heard clinking sounds coming down the street that runs next to the firehouse. The sound was distinct and from a bygone era. In the mid-1800s, the shoes worn by men were leather-soled and had a metal plate on the heel to increase the lifespan of the shoe. When walking on concrete or stone, the plate would make a loud clinking sound. Michael looked up and saw a man walking down the old stone walkway. At a glance, it looked as if he was dressed in civilian clothing from the mid-1800s, but it was difficult to tell for sure because the street lighting of Harper's Ferry isn't very bright. Michael wasn't surprised at the sight of the man, as Harper's Ferry often has people in historical clothing walking the streets, even in the early hours of the morning. Michael figured he was looking at another sleepless reenactor out for an early morning stroll. Michael continued to tend to the fire, but then he noticed that the clinking gate had stopped. He looked up and saw the man standing about 70 feet away, looking directly at him. Michael motioned for the man to come over to share in the freshly restoked fire, but the man simply stood there and stared. Thinking that maybe the man did not understand what he meant, Michael rose and began walking towards him, intending to share a friendly conversation with a fellow reenactor. But as soon as Michael rose, the man slowly turned around and began walking back up the street from which he had come. He was walking very slowly, so Michael shook his brother awake and they set off after the man. However, by the time they got to where they expected the man to be, they could not find him, and the clinking of the shoes was no longer on the air. Confused and a little shaken, Michael and his brother returned to their campsite and did not see the man again. On subsequent visits to Harper's Ferry, Michael would think about the unusual encounter and sometimes ask longtime residents and park rangers about the man, and a year after his late-night encounter, he did find a ranger who admitted to having a very similar encounter late one evening while closing up some of the buildings. The man's appearance, the clinking of the shoes, his unusual staring before walking away was almost identical to Michael's own experience. The identity of the man with the metal-plated shoes is unconfirmed, but some like to think that it is John Brown or one of his followers that met their ends in Harper's Ferry in 1859. Of course, the town was also ravaged during the Civil War as the site of 5 separate battles, and the town proper changed hands at least 8 different times during the conflict, with the many casualties contributing to the haunting tales that developed in the years thereafter. Mr. Metal Shoes could be the result of any one of these calamities, or maybe even the lingering spirit of everyday life in one of Harper's Ferry's more peaceful stretches. Whoever he is, he has plenty of spirited company in the historic town. Amongst the many other spirits of Harper's Ferry, particularly from the mid-1800s and the Civil War era, are the spirits of wounded soldiers and an old priest who are said to haunt St. Peter's Catholic Church, which was used as a hospital in the Civil War. Visitors will also often hear the distant sounds of fife and drums as if from an army marching on the town, even though there are not any reenactors around Harper's Ferry at the time. And again,
as we mentioned, they do have a ghost tour as well, so definitely recommend going and checking that. We need to check that out ourselves.
Yeah, and this is just scratching the surface. You're not having a good evening.
I'm not. I should go put myself somewhere that's not around electrical equipment.
You just need to stay right there.
As I said, not around electrical equipment.
Okay. You just need to stay right there. So Patrick's rode his bike through Harper's Ferry. And
we've done tubing down that area, which was really, really cool to go and do.
Yes, tubing down the river there was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So got to go under like the railroad trestles and like below Harper's Ferry, and you get to where the rivers merge, and you look up and there's Harper's Ferry above you. It was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, so we've been there twice, once to tube and once in February.
Yep.
But we actually need to get back there in the summer months.
We do. We definitely do.
I'd love to get there in the fall because I'm sure it's beautiful. But
absolutely.
The foliage season, we don't do much of anything but give tours.
Comes with the business.
It does. It does. I miss being able to do things in the fall. But making money.
We digress.
We do. This is the whiskey and my hot toddy talking.
Do I just need to carry on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, you can put that down.
I like the glow.
Okay, you like the glow? It really looks kind of freaky on you on the screen.
All right, I put it down here. Put it down here so I don't drop it.
Anyways.
I'm sorry. I'm having a really bad allergy today, and I thought a hot toddy would help.
Instead, you still have your allergies, and now you're half drunk.
Yes.
So,
cheers.
Anyways, so we are going to head to the western edge of West Virginia along the banks of the Ohio River, where we have the town of Sistersville, home of Wells Inn. Wells Inn popped up in 1894 as Sistersville was booming from the recent discovery of oil there in 1891. Built by Ephraim Wells, his motivation for creating the hotel was to offer meals and lodging to the city and the oil workers. Ephraim was the grandson of the founder of Sistersville, Charles Wells. Charles was the first to settle in this location in 1802, and the settlement was initially named Wells Landing. He had 22 children by two different women, and Ephraim was one of his many grandchildren. When Charles died in 1815, he left the property that makes up most of the current business district to his two daughters, Sarah and Delilah. They were good businesswomen and laid the land out into 96 lots with 8 streets, and the town was named Sistersville after the two sisters.
Go women.
Sistersville also has the oldest ferry in West Virginia. It started operating in 1817 and still carries people across the Ohio River to the state of Ohio on the other side. As the town grew, particularly with the discovery of oil, all sorts of people were drawn into Sistersville, from hooligans and gamblers who would frequent the saloons to the wealthy elite who brought private social clubs and the need for nicer hotels, such as the Wells Inn. The hotel was considered the most elegant in town with 35 rooms, a bar, and a dining room. There are many stories about the hotel being haunted, with the most frequent reported spirit being that of the original owner, Ephraim Wells. Many have told of seeing him walking the halls of the hotel, checking to make sure that everything is still up to snuff. Additionally, doors close inexplicably, strange noises have been reported, and sometimes the elevator goes to the 3rd floor for no apparent reason. Some guests have also heard the sounds of writing coming from Wells' old office, the distinctive sound of a pen scratching against paper. The sounds of furniture being dragged into place and disembodied footsteps are sometimes accompanied by a sudden and inexplicable chill. Even with all this activity in the hotel proper, it's said that the bar may be the most haunted corner of the building. Employees have talked of an oppressive spiritual force there that has been named Clarence. While Clarence doesn't limit himself to the bar, it seems to be his most favorite location in the building, and he enjoys giving the bartenders there a hard time. The bar also once had a jukebox that would abruptly turn on and off by itself. And if you're a guy who needs to use the restroom there, take care that you might not be alone. The restroom...
You finally get a restroom ghost yourself?
Yeah, the restroom door has been known to swing open when the restroom is occupied, even if there are no visible person there to push on the door. If you're looking for haunted hotel rooms in the Wells Inn, it can be a little challenging as some of the room numbers have changed with renovations over the years. In old room 204, a woman used to come to meet her lover in this room and apparently still visits to this day. It's said that one day the woman came to the room, but her man never showed up. This continued time and again, and the woman fell into despair. She finally ended her life in the room, but her spirit may not have left. It is reported that the lights in the room go on and off, as well as loud, unexplainable noises. One guest even reported smelling a woman's perfume when he spent the night. A playful little girl is also said to be seen playing in the halls and sometimes heard jumping rope in the rooms. According to one of the owners, he has had people check out in the middle of the night after seeing her in the hallways. There's also a rumor that there was once a crawl space that went under the lobby in the parlor, and when it was dug out in the 1960s, some weird things may have been found. Weird things. During the excavation, the team was instructed to take a week off from the dig, and when they returned to work, it was evident that someone had been digging in that location. What was found or what happened has yet to be determined. The Wells Inn has gone through many owners, as well as renovations, to try to keep up with modern-day amenities. The inn was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1972, and you can still spend the night. It is currently listed on Airbnb, and they are right now having kind of a fire sale because they're in the midst of major renovations, so it's kind of cheap to stay there.
Road trip.
Because you kind of also have to deal with some of the renovations that are going on.
Seriously, road trip.
So it looked like, I took a quick look, it looked like you're only charging like $55 a night. So, not too bad. Anyways.
Anybody who is not us, goes, let us know.
Yes. And just like we did back-to-back roads, now we're going to do back-to-back hotels.
Because...
So,
segue.
And this one's not too far away. This one is just a little downriver. We're going to follow the Ohio River down from Sistersville, and this time we're going to land in the much larger town of Parkersburg. Here we have the Blennerhasset Hotel, another late 1800s era hotel that you can still stay in despite the several setbacks that it suffered over the years, including fires, floods, and yeah, it has basically been put through the ringer, but
it's a survivor.
It's a survivor, and it's really quite the beautiful establishment. So, yeah, anyways, this fixture on the Parkersburg skyline has been well known by visitors and locals alike for many years, and between that familiarity and the history that goes with it, it's no surprise that the hotel has its fair share of ghost stories. The historic Blennerhasset Hotel was built by Colonel William Nelson Chancellor and opened its doors on Monday, May 6, 1889. Chancellor wanted a grand hotel for its time and succeeded in building a lavish establishment that drew in the millionaires of the era. Like Sistersville, Parkersburg was enjoying the benefits of the oil and gas boom era, and Chancellor wanted his hotel to reflect the wealth of the day. The hotel had both gas and electricity at the time that it opened, which were truly cutting-edge amenities for the era. Interestingly, while Chancellor built the hotel, he had no interest in running it. He first leased it to George C. Campbell, who was given the task and privilege of naming the hotel. He eventually decided on the Hotel Blennerhasset, named for Harmon and Margaret Blennerhasset, wealthy Irish aristocrats who settled on an island in the Ohio River a few miles from Parkersburg in the late 18th century. The Blennerhasset name can be found on numerous establishments and locations across the region, including Blennerhasset Island Historical State Park, where there is still a grand mansion standing there today, but that's for another time. Though the hotel was named after the Blennerhassets, the ghosts reported at the hotel are generally from the industrial era. Makes sense because, well, the hotel was built like almost a century after the Blennerhassets lived there. So,
I would like to breathe.
Okay. Guests and staff have said that they have seen children riding tricycles, vaudeville performers, and men wearing top hats and bowler hats. One well-known ghost story at the Blennerhasset is the woman in the elevator. Legend has it that people will see the ghost walking into the elevator and abruptly vanish. Adam Dotson, a hospitality guest services specialist at the Blennerhasset Hotel, recalled a time that a postman with a delivery spotted the ghost. Dotson recalled, "He had never been here before. I told him to go through these doors to get out on the elevator and go downstairs, and I would be right with him." After a few minutes, Dotson decided to go with the postman to make sure he knew where he was going. He caught the delivery man before the elevator closed. He looked over at me, and the first thing he said, serious as can be, "Is this place haunted?" The delivery man continued on to say that he caught the end of a woman getting on the elevator and that before the door shut, he stopped it. But there wasn't anyone on the elevator. Another ghostly woman has been known to frequent the door facing 4th Street on the Blennerhasset Hotel. The door had once been the entrance to the gentleman's cigar stand and smoking room in 1889. According to staff, the door now serves no purpose whatsoever. Sherry Stevens, human resource manager at the Blennerhasset Hotel, said she spotted the ghost while walking to her car one evening. She said, "It was mid-afternoon. I was walking down the sidewalk across the street and something flashed, and it made me look in. So I stopped for a second and I saw a woman looking right at me in the window." Stevens said she saw the woman twice within a week, and she always looks in the window when she passes by, but she now hasn't seen the ghost in some time. She describes the woman as having a white, expressionless face and bright red hair. Stevens said she could tell the woman wasn't from this era because she wore a light blue dress that had a frilly, tall collar and a brooch. She noted, "I wasn't scared, and she didn't look evil or anything like that. It just made you stop and look, like, is this what I'm seeing?" And then it went away. Staff has said that they frequently see the black shadow figures in the basement. The figures are described as being silhouettes of people, sometimes wearing top hats, trench coats, and fur collars. The laundry room seems to be a hotspot for ghosts, as many staff members have reported seeing the figures walk to a staircase at the end of the washing rooms that leads to the bellman's closet in the main lobby. Dodson said he saw a ghostly figure walk into his office, which is also in the basement. Thinking that the shadow was a server in black clothes, he looked in his office, but nobody was there. One of the most famous ghost stories at the Blennerhasset Hotel is the story of the man with the bowler hat. The man is known to be seen in the dry storage area in the basement and also in room 409, which is located a few stories above said storage area. Staff at the hotel believe that the ghost may be connected to the Kluttenecker building, which was built next to the hotel by businessman Johann Kluttenecker. The hotel acquired the building and incorporated that portion of the building during the 1985 renovation. Room 409 is the only two-story suite in the hotel. As well as seeing the bowler hat man, guests who stay at that room have reported hearing furniture moving around at night. One guest said that the bowler hat man tried to hold her down in bed by her neck one morning. Dodson said he had an encounter with the ghost while staying in room 407, next door to said infamous room 409. He said he chose the room because it is known to be on the quiet side of the hotel, but he woke up to what sounded like a party in room 409. The next morning, Dodson told the front desk about how noisy the people in 409 were that night, and the staff said he was the only one on that floor on that end of the hotel that night. If you're interested in learning more about this historic hotel, you can actually join Adam on one of his hotel tours that, as of right now, are offered most Tuesday through Saturday afternoons.
I'm down.
So, yeah.
I just don't want to be helped by the next, so we'll stay in 407.
Okay.
Patrick says I need to breathe. It's important.
Yes, you do need to breathe. It is quite important.
Yeah.
So, we do have one last stop for you this evening. This time we are going to take a deep dive into Southwest Virginia, where along the border with Kentucky, we find the city of Williamson. This community in the heart of Hatfield and McCoy territory has seen much in its years and has persevered into the modern era. One symbol of this perseverance is the old hospital on College Hill.
Would you like a wet your whistle before you go down this road?
Where's the tea?
I told you it's more whiskey than tea.
Anyways, formerly known as the Williamson Memorial, the hospital opened to patients on March 3rd, 1928, after a devastating fire destroyed the town's previous hospital. Built as a state-of-the-art facility, Williamson Memorial served patients throughout the region for 60 years before being converted into doctors' offices and then later used as storage. In 2020, the hospital was purchased by private investors with the intent of saving the historic building and sharing that history with the public, as well as offering a really awesome spooky tourism opportunity as well.
Yes.
Now, the most notorious story from Williamson Memorial starts in the early hours of Saturday, July 21st, 1962. A man named Mose Blackburn and his wife Ora had gotten into a pretty heated fight outside of the restaurant they owned on Pike Street. The police were called and Lieutenant Garnet Richmond, accompanied by Patrolman Howard Hatfield, arrived in their cruiser. When they arrived at the restaurant, they found Mose sitting in one car and Ora in another. Hatfield got out of his vehicle and began to approach Mose's car. At that time, Mose drew his .22 pistol. Richmond got out and circled Mose's vehicle from the other side. Mose fired a shot through his windshield and struck Lieutenant Richmond. A gun battle ensued, and with 20 bullets fired, Mose ended up being struck in the right arm before being subdued when additional officers arrived. Both Richmond and Blackburn were taken to Williamson Memorial for the treatment of their injuries. Unfortunately, Lieutenant Richmond did not survive. Lieutenant Richmond was a 43-year-old veteran of World War II. He left behind a wife, Ola May, a daughter, Marcia, and a stepdaughter, Jance, and also a child that was still on the way. He was buried in Mountain View Memorial Gardens in Huddy, Kentucky. As for Mose Blackburn, his arm wound must have been fairly serious because he was still in the hospital 3 days later. A newspaper article from that day states that his arraignment was to be held upon his release from the hospital. However, Mose would never make it to his arraignment. While under the care of hospital staff, Mose was guarded by 2 sheriff's deputies who took turns watching him. These deputies were Enoch Fillinger and Maury Blair. On Sunday night, July 29th, it is reported that Mose asked Fillinger to go to the nurse's station and get him a drink of water. When Fillinger had stepped out of the room, Mose took off running out of his 3rd floor room and into the hallway and leapt out a window. It is surmised that Mose had tried to commit suicide ahead of his arraignment, but the fall left him in critical condition. For a while, at least. Mose survived and was being treated at Williamson Memorial up until his death at 2:15 a.m. on Friday morning, August 24th, 1962, just over a month from when he was first admitted. In a newspaper article from the next day, the Mingo County coroner, Tabor Bell, declared the cause of death to be an abscess on the lung. This condition arose from having fractured his rib in his jump from the hospital window. In that leap, he also managed to suffer a couple of broken bones and multiple contusions on top of the injury sustained to his right arm in the gun battle. Mose was buried in Davis Memorial Gardens in Stone, Kentucky. These are the facts that are backed up by newspaper reports and death certificates. What is left to speculation is whether or not Mose really jumped out that 3rd-story window or not, and if he did, why. Various sources have speculated that Mose did not jump of his own accord, rather he was thrown or pushed out the window by one of the police officers in retaliation for killing one of their own. This is plausible if the window Mose jumped from was the window in his own room. If he was thrown out the hallway window, surely a new nurse or another patient would have seen what was going on. Maybe they did, but chose not to say anything about it. Either way, let's say that Mose did jump out the window on his own. It may make sense that he would choose to do this rather than spend the rest of his life in prison, as he was already in his mid-50s. However, there might be a darker reason. There are stories that leading up to the suicide attempt, Mose was plagued with nightmares about someone coming to get him and had commented that he feared for his life. Was he afraid of the living, breathing police officers that were constantly watching his every move, or were his fears a little more supernatural in origin? Could the spirit of Lieutenant Garnet Richmond, who died at the hands of Mose Blackburn, have been haunting him? Both men were taken to the same hospital and treated by the same doctors, yet one of them was dead within the hour, never to see his family again. Did Lieutenant Richmond get his revenge by scaring Mose so badly that he tried to escape that hospital by any means necessary? Did Richmond's spirit actually physically push him? These are questions that paranormal investigators have been trying to answer in recent years as they seek out a connection with not only the potential spirit of Lieutenant Richmond, but also with Mose Blackburn, who seems to have taken up a spirited residence here as well. When Paranormal Quest investigated the building in the spring of 2021, they actually gathered some data in that area. One member felt something breeze by him several times, taking the route the Mose would have taken when fleeing towards the window. Various sensors designed to pick up energy were also activated along the route that Mose would have taken to the window. Other claims include sightings of a man standing in a 3rd-story window, seen from the outside by neighbors and visitors, which may or may not be the spirit of Mose Blackburn. Other spirits linger about the hospital too, with the old hospital on College Hill sharing some of them on their website, collegehillhospital.com. While the building was still operating as a hospital, a woman came to give birth. Well, in a patient room, a nurse walked in and told her she wouldn't be having her baby that day and that she could return home. As she was leaving, another nurse stopped her and asked where she was going, and the lady said, "The nurse told me to leave." The nurse said, "What nurse? I'm the only nurse on this floor today." There's also the story of a nurse who passed away at the old hospital, and employees still saw her working even after her death. A construction worker saw her on the 4th floor and refused to go back to that floor during the renovation of the building. Additionally, reports of a floating nurse exist in the basement. It is specifically noted that she is seen going between the 2 x-ray rooms at the end of the hall. People outside of the building who live around downtown Williamson often report lights coming on and off, people staring out the windows, shadow figures, and smoke out the top of the building. Numerous times, the Williamson Police Department has responded to calls of folks inside the building, only to find all entry points secured. During paranormal tours in 2018, a tour guide repeatedly became ill in the left x-ray room. Her flashlights with brand new batteries would also die and flicker upon entering the room. During one of the final tours during the 2018 season, a local medium told the crew that there was a man behind the x-ray control panel that did not want the crew in that room. During paranormal tours in 2018, the crew member who assisted visitors riding between floors had the elevator stop on floors that were not being used by tours. Strangely, the way that the elevator is wired, someone on those floors would have had to have pressed the button for it to go to those specific floors. Additionally, the crew had locked the doors to those floors that weren't being used to control where people could visit. This crew member also noted several times that lights or figures could be seen through the doors as they passed those unoccupied floors. If you're interested in booking a private investigation at the old hospital on College Hill or wish to stay up to date on all the public haunts and other spooky events held throughout the year, be sure again to check out their official website for the old hospital on College Hill, which again is collegehillhospital.com. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, draws us to a close for Haunted West Virginia.
Claps for Chris.
At least Volume 1. Haunted West Virginia Volume 1. We will certainly be talking about West Virginia again in the not too distant future, whether it's a part of one of our themed episodes or whether we do a Haunted West Virginia Volume 2. We will eventually do that, I'm sure.
Probably.
I mean...
Or we'll be pulling stories from it just for other theme nights.
Yep, but we got a lot of material from West Virginia. Because, again, West Virginia, a state that embraces the spooky, which...
Yay!
2 thumbs up for that. So, hope you enjoyed the stories.
We'll see you again on April 22nd, at which point we'll be covering Haunted Seattle.
Ooh.
Chris and I are actually going to be going to Seattle in...
Less than a month.
Yeah, less than a month. So we decided we were going to do some pre-research and do some Haunted Seattle before we got there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And hopefully we'll be taking a ghost tour when we get there. The ghost tour we're looking at, unfortunately, is in the process of relocating.
Yep, so we'll see what happens there, but they'll be reopened by the time we get there. We just have to see what happens.
I just have to see where they're starting from, etc.
But, and I will have to come back and respond to the comments here.
I'm sorry, I am out of order today.
And I apologize because I was reading off the tablet so long, I cannot for the life of me focus on the computer screen right now. So all I see blurry stuff. So are there any questions there?
You're asking me, I'm blurry too.
Oh, great. Okay. If you have questions and we don't get to them right now, I apologize. We'll come back. I'll come back and try to answer them after we get off the air here and my eyes adjust. But thank you very much for watching.
Yes, and thank you, Patrick and Mom, for sticking it out with us. Unfortunately, we are a little tired and I am a little under the weather.
You are. Not we.
I said I.
You also said we.
I said we are tired, but I am under the weather.
I'm just getting warmed up. Anyways, trying best patience is not a good idea right now, so I will cease and desist. But hope you again all enjoyed. Hope that you can come on out. If you at the very least, we'll see you back here again in 2 weeks. And if you can, come on out, join us on a tour. So the weather's warming up. Got some beautiful tour weather ahead of us.
Yeah,
and
the tour on the 19th is getting close to getting booked out already. So hop on those tickets if you want them.
Yep. So, I mean, if things sell out early enough, we may add another tour if we can.
If we have a guide available.
If we have a guide available, but time will tell. Time will tell. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Hey, buddy, can I go turn the camera off?
I'll trade you a cat for.
You'll go turn. Oh, you're gonna just take the cat.
I'm
Okay.
gonna take the key.
All right. So
He's not going to like this.
Thank you all very much. Hope you all have a good evening. Stay spooky. Safe and spooky. Safe and spooky. And we will talk to you all again soon.
Bye.
Bye.